Hi, welcome to Mepicon 40 and our third installment of favorite games we play at home. And joining me today is Katie Zane, who's our Director of Outreach, Ed Lehman, who is the founder of Mepicon, and Rich Radgoski, who is our board game genius. Also, Eric Zane, who you can't see, but trust me, he's here. Say hi,
I'm here. Hi, everybody.
So thanks for joining us today. And I know about a year ago we thought, well, I don't know what we thought, but I didn't think I would still be sitting here on my couch for Mepicon 40, but I was wrong. So we've learned a lot though over the past months. Eric and I were playtesting a game with Amanda Schaefer a little earlier, and we talked about how much we're looking forward to playing in person, but also how some of this online and hybrid mode is interesting and provides different benefits. So anyway, I'll start with Rich. Rich, what have you been playing recently that you've really been enjoying at home?
So I got a stack of games here to my left. The newest one is called The Lost Ruins of Arnak. It's a fairly new game that just came out. It's got a mix mash of really great mechanisms and visuals. So imagine you are an Indiana Jones type in the current age, and we've found a new large island that has a lost civilization on it. That's what your characters are doing. You're going and you're searching this island out. You're doing research and you're digging out tombs and temples, and you're finding magic items or artifacts. Some of them are a little magical. And it's just a fun game where you're placing your meeples down, and it's a little bit of an engine builder. And I think we've probably talked about engine builders in the past. What I mean by that is that as each turn goes on, your options increase based upon what you've already done. So you're building an engine. It's often referred to card games where you're laying a lot of different cards down, and one card will let you do one thing, and then another card will let you do two things, and then the third card will let you do three things, all with the same resources, really. So it's one of my favorite type of engines. I really like Indiana Jones. So it's really hitting fairly big with me right now.
So you said it just came out. Was it a Kickstarter or is it in mass production?
It was a Kickstarter, and I did not back this particular one. So I got it on the open market. I got it at Barnes & Noble, I think. So it should be available for everybody. But Kickstarter is so prevalent right now. In fact, I think every one of these games to my left have been Kickstarted. So it's just the way they do business now, I think.
Yeah, I think it's way more popular than maybe even just a few years ago.
I have some trepidations about some of the bigger companies doing Kickstarter, simply because I don't think they need to, and I think they kind of get some hype and revenue where it isn't warranted. But certainly new businesses and new designers, I think that's really what this was all about originally. And I actually really like backing new companies who have innovative ideas and might not ever get those to my table without some kind of crowd sponsoring.
Yeah, there's been great stuff on Kickstarter that I've gotten backed or just saw and wished I could get.
Yeah.
Well, I was playing a game called Ekra with the founders, I guess, who are looking to do a Kickstarter. So that was a lot of fun, and they're from Germany. So I thought, I did think about you, Rich, because I know a lot of the board games that you play or have brought to the con in the past are Euro games, and many of those are come out of Germany. So
Yep.
It's pretty neat to see a small company like that, which I think it's too, judging from the voice, young women, could be wrong, but building a game, and like you said, then being able to use a Kickstarter to possibly make something that really goes big, and you can later buy at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I played 2 games at the Portals, what was it, 15th anniversary, when they had it in their store with the cake and everything. There were 2 or 3 people that were setting up, getting their games into the Kickstarter mode. I think one of them went to Kickstarter. I don't think the other one did, but I'm not sure. But it was a great time playing the games and providing feedback. And secondly, whenever I see a new game that Rich happens to pop up on the table, I try and grab a seat. It's always been a great time. Rich, you're great at teaching games.
Well, I certainly do like to do it.
Well, it's funny. Lance bought me Rurik for my birthday, and then he said, "I think we need somebody here to teach us how to play this game," which is probably true.
I think I spoke about Rourke last time.
You did.
Yes.
You did.
Well, you ran
it exactly why.
Yeah.
And you ran it at Mepicon in the past. I played at it.
What a wonderful game. Maybe one of these days I'll get on a Zoom call with you and I'll teach you how to play it. It really is wonderful.
So Ed, what about you? What are you playing at home that it's a lot of fun right now?
Well, there's 3 games that whenever I can harangue my wife and son, I think I'm using harangue properly here, into playing. They're rather long games. Eclipse, Terra Mystica, and Terraforming Mars on the board. I really enjoy those types of games. We've been playing them. I really like Eclipse, and I'm learning more about it as I go and learning how to teach it. But more generally, I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons 5e online with a bunch of people from Texas and Ben Lobick, and been entertaining some of you with my character narratives, which the DM is nice enough to provide bonus experience points when we write them up. I'm actually a few thousand experience ahead of everybody else in the game because I keep throwing out the stories because I enjoy writing about it, and then he has to kind of put what really happened as because it's a
non-spin version.
Right, exactly. And the other thing is I got sucked in by Humble Bundle and picked up Terraforming Mars on Steam, and I've been learning that, and I've been playing through scenarios, watching how the AIs play and learning some of the tricks and learning stuff that I've done wrong as far as rules, misinterpretation, that kind of thing. I haven't played against an entirely advanced AI yet. I've played the basic and the intermediate and just trying to figure out how to do stuff. I don't really play against the easy ones anymore because I can win more than 50% of the time.
That's a good way to up your strategy game, right? Because you're out of the 2 or 3 people you normally play with.
I do prefer playing against live opponents, though. There's just something, not just the social aspect of it, but the strategy, the planning, the logistics, and the way different people think. And the AIs don't really simulate the entire interaction playing at a table with somebody else.
Yes, 100%. 100%. So, I mean, it's better than nothing, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, but I could play by myself.
But you don't have to be haranguing anybody, right?
Right.
What about you, Katie? Anything that you've been playing lately that is fun?
Yeah, so I've been playing from Catalyst Games, which is like the opposite of what we were just talking about. They're like one of the biggest game companies, but I've been playing The Duke, which is a nice 2-player game. So that's been really nice for quarantine because you don't need a lot of people to play. And they actually have free on their website. You can get a print and play version where you just print it yourself and you can play. I mean, obviously it's nice to have the tiles, but it's pretty simple in terms of the pieces. It's not terribly difficult to print it out yourself. And it's black and white, so you don't even need a color printer to do it. But it's very cool. It's a little bit similar to chess. In some ways, you've got different pieces that move different ways. But instead of like where chess is a lot of memorizing what the different pieces do, it's written right on the piece what they do. And the cool thing, the thing that I think I like the most about it is that every time you move a piece, you flip it. And when you flip it, it can move different ways once you flip it. So it really adds to the strategy that it's not just, okay, well, this one can go diagonal 2 spaces and then it'll go diagonal again 2 spaces. It won't, it'll do something different. And so that's kind of a cool feature to it, but it has, the actual game has they're nice wooden tiles. As you can see, so they're two-sided with different
That's
things.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a neat game. It's a lot of fun. I think I learned to play it in about 3 minutes. I mean, it was very, very straightforward. And then of course the strategy will be the big thing. But even like the first game I played, I won, which was mostly dumb luck, I think. But you don't have to be a super strategist to play and enjoy it and win. And so that's the one that I've been playing. And then my daughter's been getting into some classic games. Violet has been into dominoes, has been her big favorite recently. For Easter, I got her a set of dominoes where each number has a different color for the little holes, and so she really thought that was cool. So that's been the other one we've been playing.
I don't think I've ever played dominoes.
Oh, that was big for me. My grandmother played, my dad's mom played, and so like we played Rummy Cube and dominoes when I was a kid. We played all the time, so that was certainly one that was close to my heart.
I played that too many years ago to really talk about. Nika and I, my daughter Nika, for anyone watching who doesn't know who Nika is, recently just played Quirkle, which is a very entertaining color and symbol game that you match tiles up, and it has kind of a little bit of a domino feel to it.
I've seen it, but I haven't played it.
Ryan in the chat said that they just got dominoes that have llamas on them. So regular dominoes or Mexican train? I don't know the difference since I don't know anything about dominoes.
I
no
think
idea.
The ones that we have are just regular dominoes.
You know what dominoes are really good for? I found after 3rd edition D&D came into play, they were the perfect size for a 1x2 square horse or other creature. I grabbed the domino set, and everybody had a different, somebody wanted the boxcar, somebody wanted Snake Eyes. That was their horse on the grid.
There you go.
Creativity. Yeah. What about you, Eric? Anything you're playing?
Oh. Unfortunately, I haven't played any games since January, I think.
That's not true. We've played Pathfinder every 2 weeks.
I'm getting to that. I'm just talking about board games, something new that's different. But yes, we play Pathfinder every 2 weeks. 2 different campaigns. I'm stupidly trying to figure something out in 2nd edition at this point for Pathfinder, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make that happen. But yeah, I haven't really.
Well, sometimes it's a real challenge, and I know,
Yeah.
Like I'm in a similar place with Ed in that, I have to kind of cajole people to want to play board games, which I really like to play. So then I go on Steam and try to, okay, well, I'll play this online, and it's not necessarily the same thing. One thing I got Love Letters.
I've heard of
And
that
I mean,
one.
I have the physical game, but I also I started playing it on online, and I was like, wow, I actually really like this game. It was just, so it was fun. So what's next on your list, Rich? I see you are in your pile, in your stack.
So one of the things that has surprised me during this pandemic is that my wife has decided that she's willing to try more games lately, which is great. She did try Lost Ruins, and she won one of the games that we played. But these two are her favorites: Wingspan and Calico. So Wingspan, I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's all the rage. It's got several expansions now. But basically, you have 3 habitats, and you play cards into each habitat, and each card, which is a bird, a different bird species, gives you different bonuses. And it's another version of an engine builder in that when you do something in a habitat, like gather food or gather eggs, lay eggs, or get new bird cards, each bird in the habitat will do something for you. And the more you can lay out birds that are complementary to one another, the more your engine builds, and you get more food and cards and victory points. It's a lot of fun. And then Calico is a more casual game where you're basically building a quilt, and cats. If you put certain sequences of patterns and colors together, then some cats will come and lay on your quilt, and you get different victory points for that. And that's right up her alley. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds. I can think of like 10 people off the top of my head that might like to play that game.
I mean, it's just an amazing little game.
Just based on the cat angle by itself.
Have I talked to you guys about Mystic Vale?
I don't think so.
So Mystic Vale is one of my son's, Colin's, favorite game, and it has a really unique mechanism. It is not a card deck builder. A deck builder is where you start out with a minimum amount of cards, and then you add cards every turn, and then at the end of the game, you score basically by having cards worth victory points in your hand. Well, in Mystic Vale, you have the same amount of cards at the beginning of the game as the end of the game. But what you're doing is you're adding to each card. So some cards come blank, and some cards come with pre-printed stuff on it. So this one is pre-printed. But then you buy these clear plastic other cards, and you slot them in to the card. And so it's called a card builder.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty cool? Neat.
That's really unique.
And so every card has different abilities and scores. So if you see on this one, if you see the blue dots are basically mana. So each one of those will generate the money that you need to spend. And if you see a blue dot in the upper right-hand corner of a card, then that's how much that card costs to buy. Okay, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. So all these cards are in different expansions. You can mix them all together, and when they come out, again, you're engine building, because not only the original is still there, but each other thing that you've put in. So that's a big favorite of everybody in the families.
So Kim asked in the chat, so kind of like Gloom with using transparency?
I actually have not played Gloom, so I can't answer that question, unfortunately.
I guess, Kim, you'll have to play both and tell us.
But the cards are transparent in some places, so if Gloom has transparent cards, maybe so.
Anybody here played Gloom? I haven't.
Yeah, I used to have a fair number of sets of Gloom. The problem is that the cards are like plastic and transparent, and eventually the ink would wear off.
Oh.
But the one of the factors of the game was that you would kind of try to kill off your family. And of course, the other players are trying to make sure that your family is better lived. So you would put cards on top of your family members, and the fact that the cards were transparent was very important, so that you could always see the name and then the face of the character. But any kind of factors, or effects that were placed on that character could be covered over by some symbol on a piece of the card, but if it wasn't covered over, it was still visible. So, like I said, it's a fun game, but the problem is that the ink would eventually kind of wear off on the plastic cards.
So that's an interesting comment. One of the things that Mystic Vale has done, and probably learned from this lesson, is that it really seems like these cards are almost photo etched onto the transparent, and then they come with a plastic film over them. And after you get 10 plays with them, the film starts looking like it needs to come off, and you just peel that off. Very much like if you bought a new piece of electronics and they had that, and they had that thing covering it, and you just peel it off.
Cell phone screen.
Yeah, I've never seen a card that has been damaged. It's really been an amazing piece of production.
Well, and Gloom has been around a long time. I'm sure that they've figured this out at this point, how to fix it.
Yeah.
I just haven't bought a copy of it in a long time. I believe it was an Atlas Games game.
Right.
And Atlas Games, of course, one of the weird things it's tough for some people with Atlas Games is that there's very little story, and they kind of expect you to create a story as you're playing cards. So there's a fun aspect to it in that respect. It's like, oh, this is what exactly happened when this person got poisoned.
Actually, didn't Atlas produce a game called Once Upon a Time? Have you ever played that?
I'm not sure was that Atlas? I don't remember playing it.
So Once Upon a Time is just a deck of cards, and everybody gets I think if I'm remembering it right, everybody gets a whole bunch of them, and then everybody plays one card at a time, and they're creating a story. So if my story, I might have a princess and a book and a toadstool in my hand, and if Ed says I went into the forest and lays his forest card, I might say, and you found a toadstool, right? And it would go around and around, and you would tell a story, and everybody would have basically a goal for what they were trying to get that story to include.
So Kim said that they backed Gloomier on a Kickstarter. It's a new standalone expansion for Gloom, I guess.
Cool.
So new things coming out
all the time. That's probably the hardest thing to deal with right now, is since everybody's been sequestered away, all the creative people have been creating new games and putting them up on Kickstarter, and my poor wallet has suffered a lot.
Rich, I saw earlier you were, I think it was a game called World of Tanks. How was that?
Well, World of Tanks is an electronic game that I play.
Oh, okay.
It's like an MMO, right?
Okay.
Except for you're in a tank.
Okay.
And
I didn't know if it was a board game or what it was.
No, I'm addicted to it too. I wanted to tell Katie that we play the Duke a lot, and the Duke, the combat, the gameplay in the Duke is very distinctive to kind of medieval combat. There's a companion game to the Duke called the Vikings, and it was a skin of the Stars, one of the Vikings TV shows, but it's exactly like the Duke, except for the combat, the skills on each tile are very different, and it feels like more of the Viking rush ahead, less finesse.
That's cool. They're also they're working on a Roman themed one too, I've heard, called Centurion.
Oh, that's exciting. I'll have to tell Colin that.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah, so it's nice to be able to do a mix of, I've been doing role-playing games too. I'm playing a Pathfinder every other week with people that I wouldn't be able to game with every other week because we're too far apart. But it's nice to be able to do a mix of things. So, Rich, if everything being equal, what would you play first? What would be your first go-to thing to play at home?
Wow, that might be the hardest question I've ever been asked. Because I'm an old school bard, right? Bard in the old school was part this, part that, part the other thing, right? And so my personal life is built that way. I love to read. I love to play games. I love to build models. I love to do all of it. Asking me to say what is my go-to, that's tough. Terraforming Mars is certainly one of them. It is one of my favorite games, and I'll play it in person anytime anybody asks, and I'll play it on Steam, almost immediately. But if I had to be honest, it would be just board games in general are probably my favorite.
And do you go on like a streak of wanting to play the same game over and over again to like, improve your strategy, or do you rather mix up what you're playing?
I'd like to mix it up a lot. I have no problem sitting down and playing 4 board games in a row, right? Calling it a mini game day and all that. My sons have decided that that's really not their cup of tea anymore. So I don't get that anymore. God, I need MeePcon 41 to be in person.
As do we all.
Yeah, we're all on board with that.
But only if I lose a game very closely and think, oh, I could have just done a little bit better, do I really want to play it immediately again. But usually I like a mix.
How about you, Ed? What's your go-to?
Largely, it depends upon who's available to play. However, that said, I have been playing Dungeons and Dragons for a very long time. And that is probably the thing I like to do most. I've gotten to the point where I haven't run Dungeons and Dragons in so long, with the exception of a first edition Pathfinder game, which runs about every 3 months or something. And we've actually gone to a Zoom my Wednesday game that I play in plays under Fantasy Ground Unity. I'm actually at the point where I'm considering starting up a first level 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons game so I can teach myself Fantasy Ground Unity and hopefully, get 4 or 5 people to play that won't give me crap that I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, okay. On with respect to Fantasy Grounds.
Yes.
Okay.
Not Dungeons and Dragons. That one, I can play any edition except 4th, and I'll be fine.
Did anyone play 4th?
For anyone who doesn't know, Ed is a phenomenal GM. He's
Thank you.
Wonderful to play with. We've always had a great time playing in Ed's games. So
yeah,
there's no question there.
Just name the night. I don't think...
not the same night that you and I both play an event.
Right.
In different events.
Wednesdays are bad. But so, and do you like to mix up? I mean, obviously, every D&D game is different from every other D&D game. I hope, anyway. But if you're playing board games, do you like to play the same one, or do you like to kind of switch around?
I get in streaks of playing, like I could play. Let me back up. When the pandemic started and everybody was pretty much stuck in their house, I think there was one stretch of 5 days where I was able to harangue my family into playing Eclipse for like 5 days in a row. My son is gotten to the point where I don't really need to help him, and he beats me occasionally. My wife beats me. The last game we played, I think that I ended up 3rd out of 3 people. So wow. I'm doing something right teaching it.
That's impressive.
Maybe you don't teach them quite so well if you want to win every once in a while.
Well, I let them choose their race, and then I there are certain races in the game that I like to play, and then I want to learn the other races so that I know how to both teach them and play them. It's like back when I was learning 1st edition Dungeons and Dragons. 1st edition had such a long run that I went through a stage where I played every class in 1st edition. Before 2nd came out, I played every class to in the teen levels and learned how to play it. And then when I ran a game, I was able to give advice on how to play the class. I think I played every race also, but
yeah, that's a good point, because some people tend to stick to the same thing. I find myself always being some flavor of elf, whether I mean to do it or not. I don't know why that is, but
in the games I play, I'm usually rogue or roguish in nature. I try to get away from it these days. I just can't, because I enjoy that class so much with the antics. For if you 3 of you that are in this meeting have seen my narratives, so I'm hamming it up a little bit. Rich, if you're ever interested, I'm happy to send out the narratives, and you can read up on the exploits of Katoth Uthracht.
Thanks, Ed. It's funny. I'm in a Saturday game that arose out of the pandemic, and I'm playing with some folks. And as a requirement, one person acts as the chronicler.
Oh.
And at the beginning of every scenario every day, the chronicler reads the past summary.
Nice.
And I used to do that back in college, except for I was the one always writing it. And I used to hand out an actual piece of paper called the scroll, which summarized last week's episode. So
that's cool.
I've always been fond of that kind of thing.
So what about you, Katie? What's your go-to game of all time?
I'm a creature of habit. So if I can play something that I know the rules inside and out, I feel much better and enjoy it a lot more. So that's not to say I don't like to play new games. I certainly miss going to MEPACon and doing all the play to wins and all that kind of stuff, which a few of my MEPACon friends have roped me into doing in my few off hours. But my ideal game day is to be able to sit down with a bunch of friends and play board games that I know. You know, even I've been playing Pathfinder for years and years, and I still don't feel like I know even a fraction of the rules. You know, I muddle through IGM, and I still don't feel like I know exactly what I'm doing. But at least as the GM, I can go, I don't know, but let's do it this way.
Wing it.
I wing it. So, and that's kind of fun to do. But yeah, given the ideal, I could play board games all day, but I definitely prefer to play some of the old standards. I mean, there were times pre-pandemic that I sat with some of the group of friends, with Jesse and Amanda and Steve and Bryce and Karina and Alex, and we would play Schrodinger's Cats or Get the MacGuffin for hours and hours and hours. And we've done that, you know, in a bunch of different situations. So I would definitely pick, so I really like those quick games that don't have a lot of rules and not a lot to remember. But I really, you know, if you get me into cooperative games, I'll be there all day too. So
Rich is pointing to something.
Here's a nice quick, it's called a roll and write that you might like, Katie. It's basically, you get a tablet, and every turn a card comes out, and you have to draw that thing on your little world. You can play it in about 20 minutes. I love big long games. I really want a 7-hour game with 1 billion pieces on the table. One of my hobbies is actually reading rule books. I mean, these things are incredible.
Yeah, but that's the thing at my house, where it's like people's eyes start glazing over. Like, even when it's like, no, I've played this. It's not that hard. And then I come out with the rule book. I feel like I have to hide the rule book. Don't look at the rule book. Never mind.
Yes. And then they'll say that, you know, you'll miss a rule and you'll say, hey, by the way, this is actually a rule that I forgot to tell you about. And they'll get mad, and I'll say, you know, you could read the rules. You could read them. I have about 500 rule books in my head. I'm not going to remember everything.
So how about you, Eric? What's your go-to game?
I like playing different games. I don't like getting into a rut. I have gotten, and I need to like try these games out. I got Outer Rim, which is a Star Wars game from Fantasy Flight. Wingspan and Dune. These are the games I want to play when I can get people.
I'm curious about Dune. It looked interesting, and I like the movie and the books.
Well, this game's been out since 1974. This is the 25th or something anniversary, or 30th. Well, no,
I didn't know
30th.
Anyone who played the game.
So
yeah.
So I used to play Dune in college, and it is an absolute brilliantly designed game. Best played with as many people as you could fit at the table, because the less players, the less social interaction you get, the less intrigue that you get, and it's not as brilliant a game. But I heavily endorse it. But I'll tell you, Wingspan plays great from one person up, right? So that they do have a one-person version, and I think you can play up to 4 or 5. I'm not quite sure. One of the expansions might have helped you go to 5.
I can't see it from here. You have it closer to you than I have it closer to me.
It's 5, and I absolutely endorse it. It's a really good game.
Yeah, I was looking at that and seeing that both Wingspan, well, that company, I think that's the whole point, is that they're designing games that have like an automata so that you can play one-player games. And then I was looking at Outer Rim. Outer Rim can actually be played one player. So cool. That's something I might break out if I find some time today.
I think that makes a lot of sense, really, because you have a lot of people, well, particularly in a pandemic situation, that are really isolated. And I know that's something I've talked to some folks like from church and they can't get to church, right? So you're talking to them and they're like, I'm single, I'm bored, I don't have anything that I really can do other than sit around and watch TV, which I'm like, believe me, there's like 500,000 things that you could do. I'll give you my list of things I can't get to. No, I'm just kidding. But that's where I'm thinking that it is nice that people could play a game single player and maybe learn it a little bit to hopefully play it with more people another time.
Yeah, and I think too oftentimes, like, I don't feel like there's a lot of negotiation or interaction between the players, and a lot with like Outer Rim or Wingspan. If I remember going through the rules, it's really just you against time. So a one-player game is definitely can work out, that you can either be in like Outer Rim, you can be defeated by the Empire, or just, since you're a smuggler or just a general malcontent, get caught by patrols, whether they're Imperial patrols or planetary patrols, that kind of a thing. So it's a good game for just that, to have you're just trying to get out there and be the best. Just because there aren't other players doesn't mean you couldn't lose the game. Wingspans, I'm not sure how that works with the automata, but again, it's like it's one of those things that's great that you can play by yourself without having to worry about other people being around in these times, especially. And of course, these are games that came out before, or at least were in development before there was a concern for that. But it's good to see that there are designers out there, thinking about that, not just in a pandemic,
right?
But in general, that sometimes it's hard to get people together to play games.
Yeah, it fascinates me what the creativity of people to come up with these games. Go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say I'm a big fan of Stonemaier games. Stonemaier games are the one they design Wingspan and several others like Scythe and Euphoria. They just do a phenomenal job on all aspects. They have great customer service. Jamie, the head of Stonemaier Games, he's doing like a board game lists. He'll get on and do a video about different games that he likes and why he likes them. And he won't review his own games, but they also have a newsletter that I get where they update everybody on the progress of their games, and they just do it in such a brilliant way. So high marks for them.
So what do you all think about, like, what makes a really good, let's talk about board games now. What makes a really good board game? What is it about your favorite games that really makes them fun to play, or more fun to play than others?
So from my perspective, it's a combination of a couple different things. The first one, and I think I've spoken about this before, is innovation. I like to see new things or even old things implemented in new ways. That's one. I want to see good production value. If I'm spending some hard-earned money, I don't want them to chintz on pieces or parts to it. It's got to have clear rules, because if you have a rule set that's really hard to read, then it really damages the experience of trying to learn and teach the game. But also, I want it to be balanced because I want every player who sits down to have the ability to win the game. And a lot of games are built with balance in mind. You know, you got to do all these things, and everybody's got the same chance to do all these things, so it's balanced in that way. But there are some really innovative games out there where the different factions are asymmetrically designed. So you're doing things completely different than the next person, but the game is still balanced. Root is an example of one of those type of games, and they fascinate me. It fascinates me when they have a game like
that. What do you think, Ed? What makes the difference between something that's your favorite and something that would sit on the shelf?
Taking a look at my stacks of board games and seeing what kind of lives there and what isn't used. I kind of have a wide variety of things I like. Flavor and story kind of play into my desire of games. Like the Eclipse and Terraforming Mars have that science fiction and not as much story development, but you're advancing along and creating things. Terra Mystica is a lot like it, but it's fantasy based. The clear rules that Rich mentioned, very important. If your rules are too complex or contradictory to themselves without a clear resolution, it creates problems, especially if you get, say, a rules lawyer in your game that you're playing and they want to not agree with your ruling.
Well, nothing grinds a game to a halt faster than everybody needing to read the rule book and argue about what does this sentence mean. Ugh.
Yeah. But yeah, and people's willingness to play a game with me, that plays a big part in it. Eclipse wouldn't be nearly as fun if I had nobody to play with, and I would have to go on to find other games that interested me, except when I'm at like Mepicon or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about you, Katie? I know you said familiarity, but what made it get familiar in the first place?
I think my preference is simple games. Like I said, you know, picking up the Duke and being able to play it within like less than 5 minutes of learning. And granted, playing with someone who knew how to play made that a little easier. I didn't have to sit and read the rule book, but that's definitely my preferred way to learn a game, is to play with people who've already played. Even though I am a visual person, I like to read the rules. I don't want you to just tell me. I want to be able to see it. But having rules that are succinct and simple and straightforward makes it a lot easier to learn quickly. And I enjoy that. But yeah, so I think, I mean, it does definitely come down to the rules for me. They have to be straightforward. They have to be easy to follow. They don't have to be super simple. I mean, I can certainly figure stuff out. There may be things that you have to look up. One of my favorite games, Flashpoint, has a fair number of rules, and I learned playing at a game day with a group of people. None of us knew how to play, I'm pretty sure, and we just picked it up and read the rule book. And
no, I think no one had played it.
Yeah. So, you know, learning that way was fine. The rule book was clear. And even to this day, when I play that game, I still have to open up the rule book and look up, you know, how do I set up the table initially and whatever, but it's still pretty straightforward and simple, and easy to follow. So that's super important to me in a board game. I know some people like the crunchy rules. Like Rich said, he really likes long board games, whereas I'm the opposite. And part of that is just, I'm so busy, you know, to sit down and play a 3 or 4 hour game. It takes a lot of finagling in the schedule to get that in there. But that said, I love the Reckoners, that's not a quick game. That's a pretty long cooperative board game, which I really enjoy. I would love to get a copy of. So you know, it does vary, but I think definitely the rules is what it comes down to for me.
Well, in that 4-hour game, if you have cats in your house, you know, we walk away and we come back. That's not the way we left it.
Yeah, don't take a break.
You take pictures. That's the beauty of the cell phone with the camera in it now, is that you can take a picture of, you know, and real high def pictures nowadays, and
yeah, except when they knock your D4s off the table and then you can't find them, and now you have caltrops in your house.
Yeah.
Come find them later. You'll find them with your feet.
Yep, I've done that.
So what about you, Eric? What makes the games that you really want to go back and play over and over?
It really comes down to two things, and I think we've all said it's the rules have to be consistent. I think that good, understandable, and consistent rules, regardless of the size of the rule book, is critical. Otherwise, the game's just not nearly as much fun as it could be, really, because everyone's fighting over the rules. Second is, for me, is like there are themes that I just can't get interested in, so the theme has to be something that is going to draw me in, and it doesn't even have to be Star Wars or D&D or something along those lines that, you know, we're all so familiar with. But as long as the theme is something that seems interesting, I cannot get the least bit interested in a game where I'm a vintner in France and I have to, you know, collect grapes just and make wines. It's just like that doesn't excite me. And, you know, then again, there are other games where you just sit there and it's like, oh, Carcassonne, I love Carcassonne. It's like, even still, it's like, why does the grape game not turn me on, but Carcassonne does? But I don't know. And
sometimes it could be an intangible, right?
Yep. And then third is replayability. What's the point in a game that's always going to be the same?
Oh, that's a really good point, right? Because especially if you're something you want to own the game. Well, why would I own the game that, you know, if you play it once or twice, now you kind of know the whole setup. You know, it's, well, I either win or lose, but this is what's going to happen.
And anymore, you're paying what, $75, $150, $200 sometimes for some of these games, depending on what they are. I know the average price is probably still around $60, but you're still going to find games in the $75, $100, even $200 range.
Creeping up.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, you know, production is expensive. You know, that's part of the reason why these Kickstarters have gotten popular, because if I have to mass produce the game just to get it to you,
economies of scale
to do it. Yeah, I can't afford to do it. But, you know, we've all talked about rules, and I had a game when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure it was the Holly Hobby game, but I might be wrong. Whatever this game was, somebody bought it for me. We opened it, tried to read the rules, couldn't figure out what the heck was supposed to happen. Put the box back together, never to be touched again. I mean, that was like the kiss of death game, whatever that game was. And the rules that lead to argument, where they're written in such a way that you can interpret this sentence differently, or, you know, you get through this whole list of rules and then there's that one little paragraph at the end that changes your whole understanding of everything else you read. And I'm like, wait, what? Oh, no, I thought I understood what we're supposed to do. One thing I like is when they give you, instead of just text, even though, like Katie was saying, I'm a visual person too. And in fact, many times I prefer to read versus seeing like a video. But I like it when they have an example of, you know, you place the cards here. Here, this is what it looks like on your table.
A flow of play kind of thing. Eclipse has some of that in their rule books, where they show kind of how your flow of play goes. When this person moves this happens, this person will then do this happens, and it kind of back and forth that way.
I've also seen some of the newer games that we've gotten. They include, it has like a QR code, and that goes to like a video.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. Well, yeah, obviously YouTube video. Or it's a video on their site.
Or that.
Spoiler alert, it's on YouTube.
I've gone to YouTube and just Googled games if I was confused about a point of play, and just a couple of times watched like a 10, 20, 40. One time it was like over an hour video of playing just to see how things worked and developed. I think I even did it for the longest one I did was for Eclipse, just to see somebody who knew what they were doing play the game with, a couple other people.
So always remember that Board Game Geek is a website that's dedicated to board games. Most of the popular games, they'll have forums and files. The files might be updated rule books with FAQs. There'll be videos which link back to YouTube of reviews or unboxings. But Board Game Geek is really my go-to source for questions like that. If I don't quite understand something, and if I can't find the answer, I'll post on there, and people will answer.
Yeah, if I can't find something that I Google, I'll email like Rich or somebody, and then he'll say, "Did you look on Board Game Geek?"
My phone a friend.
I did. I like Schrodinger's cats so much, and it's all probability, and I teach math. So I went to the portal and I asked them to get me 4 copies of the game, and I brought it to school. And I used Board Game Geek has a video that teaches you how to play. And so instead of teaching them how to play, I was like, I'm just going to do that. And that made it a lot easier to play the 5-minute video. The kids watched, they picked it up, and we didn't play with all the rules because there are some extra rules that you don't have to have. And I tried to keep it simple, but it was great. It was a lot of fun to do that and to use Board Game Geek that way.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think, to like Eric's point earlier, that a lot of these games are expensive now. So doing that little bit of research on Board Game Geek might save you a lot of aggravation later.
You can also go on there, and I did this for Terraforming Mars. I found that, was it Terraforming Mars or? Yeah, it was Terraforming Mars. I was running out of the little game cubes for resources. So I went on Board Game Geek because I couldn't find anything on eBay, and found a resource that sold just those little bitty colored cubes in all the colors. Got myself a second set of cubes, put it in with my game. And then I also went on eBay, or I forget what it was, and found giant cubes, which I use as 5 cube markers for the game to help, because I thought I was going to get a third set. For whatever reason, I run into high development on whatever resource, and multiple players do it. Right. Of course, I may be doing something wrong, but not that I've been able to tell so far.
There's always a workaround.
Yep.
Are you having fun, though?
Absolutely.
Then that's the big thing that counts.
Yeah, sometimes we're not in our house. We're not doing, it's not a tournament, right? So it doesn't actually matter.
Absolutely. And Terraforming Mars is probably my most blinged out game. Right?
I wanted that big box set so bad.
So did I. That's my. I've already 3D printed a lot of this stuff, and then they came out with exactly that, and it was just too expensive, and I couldn't pull the trigger. But that's my new Grail game. That one,
yeah,
and the second Eclipse set.
Oh yeah, the second the second
New Dawn. Yeah.
The second Dawn with all it has some rule changes and different ways of doing things. It looks cool. I've been watching it on eBay, and I don't play my version often enough to really justify getting that, because I have this game, I have the two of the expansion sets, the ship pack and the not the Rift one, not Shadows of the Rift. And I got supernovas, I got nebulas, I got black holes, I got the pulsar.
Yep.
All of that's in that second
I know.
Dawn, and more stuff. And I don't need the more stuff. I haven't even done Shadows of the Rift. But
if someone wants to bribe me, it's offer me one of those 2 Grail games.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the next time we do this, someone will have tested out one of those and we can talk about it.
Yeah, if anybody out there has played them, contact Trisha and say, hey, I'd like to be part of this discussion next time.
Sounds good. All right,
even if we're live, we can do this.
Sure,
same thing.
Sure, why not? Well, thanks for joining us tonight, everybody, and we'll hopefully seeing you online and in person.
Thank you for hosting.
Yes, thank you, Trish.
Yep.
And
thanks,
we'll be
Trisha.
back at 6 o'clock with Brendan LaSalle. Ask Me Anything. So send us your questions, and we're looking forward to hanging out with one of our favorite GMs and special guest, Brendan LaSalle, at 6 o'clock. So a little less than an hour.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.